And then Grace said, thank you. Susan Walker said, can you please address the U.S. presidential election results? I realize we have different responses. I feel shocked and heartbroken as if it was a victory for hatred. Yeah, we actually, ironically, have a couple of questions about that, and they're coming up.
So let's take Leela's,
okay. So Leela had started off saying, since the election, I have heard lots of fearful projections from friends about the end of democracy, World War III, et cetera, et cetera. Some of these projections are personal fears. Others have had more spiritual stories, such as channeled info, psychic predictions, etc. I'm again reminded of my favorite Byron Katie story, relaxed and loving with a gun to her head. Ideas for practice with collective fear and reactivity? Is it just gray rocking it all? How best to honor without absorbing the experience of friends and family?
Should we take Nikki's as well?
Yeah.
Or do you want to take that after?
Well, I mean, they do kind of go together. Yeah.
Or do you want to take it after?
I'll read Nikki's and then we can maybe go back and forth.
Okay.
So then Nikki had also said, I live in Oklahoma. They've already begun the process of defunding public schools. So this isn't a personal projection. The state superintendent sent out the agenda to begin the process that the Project 2025 outlines. I would like to stay at peace, but be helpful without the I would like to stay at peace, but be helpful without the us against them. I see the mind leaning towards. They do not fully understand what they asked for. They'll quickly learn. However, it's still a division, any advice.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to start that one?
Sure. Okay.
As a European, I do see things a bit differently than you guys.
Yeah. I think what is so important now, more than any time, is having perspective of where we actually are in any given moment, recognizing what is really here and what is, at this point, what we take to be potential, what we take to be a possibility, but which has not yet actually become fully realized. And I don't say this as a way of bypassing what might come, but we need to have the ability to be calm and present in order to be effective given any eventuality.
Would you mind if we start a different place?
By all means.
Because I think the thing about this election and what made this election so different than all other elections was that it wasn't an election about Republicans and Democrats. It wasn't an election about being partisan or not. It was an election about basic human rights. And I think that's why this election feels so different, and why people that are very focused about human rights and feel that, equality and what is it you say in the allegiance to the flag,
liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all, which is what America stands for, liberty and justice for all. That this election was about the opposite. It's about oppression of some groups. It's about going back to a period where some people have power over other people, that certain groups do no longer have human rights, and those rights will be evoked with we don't know if they will be evoked, but there's a proposal of evoking human rights in the Project 2025, and that was what the election was about. And what I felt was a surprise about actually my expectation to where the world was, my expectation to where we are in the Western world was not where reality is. And that I have felt sad and have felt like grief, but it was more about my expectation to where we are as a species and as humans, to how we treat one another. I thought we were in a different place than where we actually are. And it was more that that I felt sadness about, and that is about my expectations. You cannot argue with reality. And I think that what makes a lot of us really sad and feeling helpless and all of that in this situation, it is that your expectations, your worldview, is not aligned with reality. That the way that we meet one human heart to one human heart, it's not where the majority of the popular vote are. They're not interested in one human heart to one human heart. They have a different worldview. And it's not, now I say they, and I don't mean an us and they, because that is not helping anyone at all. But it's really about me realizing that um, that there's nothing wrong with the way that I view the world. I still believe in love and kindness and compassion towards everyone. Um, I thought we were, here. We're here. So it's still love and kindness and compassion to everyone. We're just here instead of there. So it basically hasn't changed anything. It's all about me, um, what do you call it? Dissolving my expectations and seeing reality for what it is. And being disappointed about reality being different than my expectations. Guys, we're working with that in 4 and 5. Um, so I think that's important to have first before the next things we want to say about it.
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
throw you?
No, it's complicated because I mean, I know I had said about the election being, it's hard when we're talking about this stuff, especially from this kind of vantage point in this sort of an environment, and without making things black and white in any perspective, right? Because it is, on one hand, very much a case where, from our perspective, there is, from what we are hearing, it sounds like the difference between basic human rights and oppression. And from the view of where what we have seen, you are really chomping at the bit. Would you like to say something? Because I feel like you were just ready to jump in.
No, go and say. Do you want me to say something?
No, but I can feel you like.
No, but I agree. I know where you're going,
Okay.
and I utterly and absolutely agree.
Okay.
Because I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that, and I utterly and absolutely agree. That is so super important. So say it, so everybody else know what you're gonna say.
Well, maybe it's not the same thing now.
It is the same thing. I know what you want to say.
So from our perspective, this is everything that we have been hearing. This is the bubble in which we are. That seems to be a case where there is just, it is so clearly a case of absolute oppression on one side, or cheap eggs on the other. And the thing is that this is where, again, it's so I tread lightly, because we are dealing with extremely complicated issues because of our the system where we're in now, with an incredible amount of propaganda, both in news stations, but awash on the internet with just absolute fabrications of things which are maliciously created in order to spread disinformation. And we have these echo bubbles where people only hear their own information. And I find very useful to actually see the propaganda on both sides, because then you can actually start to pick out, maybe not where the truth necessarily lies, but how much extreme manipulation of facts there can be on both sides, because it's not all coming from people on either side.
No.
There are third parties intervening in some cases, like Patty said, there are bots who are doing these things, but we know that there have been outside actors like Russia since, at least for years ago, who are seeding misinformation, and then people spread it thinking it's coming from their personal side, their identified bubble.
And it's also, I just want to say that
Yeah.
that the reason why that is effective is that when you're telling lies, it's not about people believing the lies, it's about dividing.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you divide people, then we are in the position now where we end up with a feeling of us and them. And when what I said before, that this election was about human rights, I don't mean that my idea of human rights are the right human rights, because the other side voted like they did for their view of human rights. We are all about human rights. It's just different angles to it, and that is where the division is dangerous, because we are all pro people.
Yeah,
We are all pro
well,
people.
to a certain extent, but yeah, but the thing is that there are because we have such. Let me kind of start again in a different place. We all come from a certain starting point of having preferences for something. And, like personally, we have the preferences that everybody should be equal and nobody should be oppressed for their beliefs. We shouldn't be pushing beliefs on other people. That is itself a belief which has come about because of all of our causes, and all of our conditioning has led to these particular organisms that feel like oppressing others for the sake of enforcing your own agenda or your own belief on other people's autonomy feels wrong, right? In us, that gives a feeling of dissonance. This does not feel okay because it goes against all of our conditioning. It's helpful to recognize that there are other people who feel exactly the same way from the exact polar opposite standpoint, that how they define their worldview and how, because of their causes and conditions, again, it's not pointing blame at other people, because we know fundamentally that this is a play of conditioning that's happening, and we're never vilifying the other person and pointing blame at them for the sake of because they believe what they believe. It was not their choice to be indoctrinated and to believe what they believe. It was not their choice.
Right, it
wasn't
our
our
choice.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It wasn't our choice and it wasn't their choice. Anytime we point a finger like that, we're saying that I had the choice to be the good moral person that I am, and they screwed up somehow. And so they're lesser in some way. And people do that on both sides of the fence. And this isn't to say like, well, all is equivalent and it's just as fine to cage people as it is to let them run free. None of that. What we're saying is, when you come down to vilifying the actual person, it's kind of like there's the Christian saying, hate the sin, love the sinner. It's that kind of idea that like we're not saying that the behavior is condonable. We're not saying that the stuff that is apparently potentially coming with Project 2025 would be in any way defensible from a certain moral standpoint. But from another moral standpoint, it completely is. Obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be done. But it's because of the conditioning of those people that see that as a much more defensible standpoint than the ones with this particular conditioning. And so the good thing is and this is where I was going to begin with, doing the work that we do gives us the opportunity to not push back from that defensive standpoint where I'm defending me and the way that I feel uncomfortable. Like I said, there's a dissonance in us with that feeling of oppression of others, right? That stimulates something in the body that says, no, this just feels icky. It's like watching a horror movie and feeling that sort of dread and despair and hopelessness and helplessness, because there is that feeling that arises in the body that says that this can't be, this isn't okay. And what we do with this kind of work is to recognize that that sensation in the body is not actually helpful in this situation. It's not telling us something that's absolutely true just because the sensation is there. Now, again, we still can act, we can still do things, but that sensation, if we are reactive towards it or from it, deflecting from it, is what creates that us against them angry rhetoric, that divisive behavior that just, instead of bringing people together and finding ways in which to overcome some of these differences and talk things out, it just makes it more defensive. And so people get locked even more into their tribes, and it just increases the division. So what I suggest is to be able to sit with that discomfort and to find a space of stillness where we can still act, we can still engage, we can still, you know, protest, petition, do whatever feels right to you, because again, it is happening, causes and conditions, right? It is going to happen one way or another. Either you are going to despair and lock yourself in the room for 4 years and never come out, turn off, cut your cable and your internet and just be a hermit and disconnect for 4 years, or you're out on picket lines and protesting and doing whatever. One of those things is going to happen, and there's no doer in here who has a say over which one it's going to be. But putting in a little bit of a seed here that hopefully will also sprout some flowers going forward is to feel that discomfort with things being the way that they are, if they're a way in which you feel that dissonance, and see if you can find an equanimity with things, just simply being the way they are in this moment, and then with that dissonance being there. And it's what I was getting at in the meditation, is that you can have a feeling of emotional discomfort, and there are ways to find equanimity even with that, because we need to have that place of stillness to retreat to, or to act out of. Because if we're acting out of defensiveness and that deflection,
any reaction,
then that's coming from a place which is going to only seed more hate, anger, and division. Action, especially in this regard, needs to come from that place of calm and stillness. And so having that, because also we get burned out, right? We are beings that, I remember the first 4 years of Trump when it was like such an emotional onslaught that those of us who were engaged with the news cycle at the time, it was absolute exhaustion. I mean, we were just burned out. By the first year, it was like, unthinkable. And the nervous systems were just collectively destroyed, right? It was so much onslaught of stuff all the time, all the time, all the time. We absolutely need a way to disengage from our projections of what's happening and from our reactivity, and to allow any discomfort that's there to be there without making it a problem, and to find that place of, it can be there. We're not running away from it. We're not ignoring or denying the fact that things are happening, but it's in us to have that ability to have that inner peace regardless of what happens.
We're back to drinking the poison.
Yeah, exactly.
It's back to, so we're not condoning any behavior. We're not saying, I'm still on about those 5,000 children that was taken from their families and still haven't been reunited. We have no idea where those 5,000 kids are. 2,000 kids. Oh, only 2,000 kids that have never been reunited with their families. If we create that us and them, I'm the one drinking the poison every time I think about those kids. I'm the one drinking the poison, the one that put them into the cages and never kept any, logs of where the kids came from and where the kids should go back to. They're having cornflakes while I'm drinking poison. So it's like, it's
not sure cornflakes is the decadent treat you think it is, but I get your point.
In this household, it's super decadent. So, but is that really, really, really being aware? And another thing I also want to say is that whatever thought you have about them, they are not about human rights. Turn it around. So how am I, do the Byron Katie, how am I not about human rights? How are they about human rights? Just for you to get out of your way and see things from a different perspective, because we need that, to have that heart from one human heart to one human heart. If you want to stay there, and if you want to stay in the arising right now without bypassing, without gray rock, and without any of that, but really come from a huge source of compassion and kindness and love, The only thing you can do is keep looking, keep turning around all the time. Whenever you think somebody about them, they are say something oppressive. Okay, how am I oppressive towards them? How are they not oppressive? Just not because I'm saying that they're not, but if they are, you are. If you are for love and compassion, you can allow them to be for love and compassion too. So see, how are they for love and compassion? Even though it might not look like that, the underlying motivation for the majority of people is love and compassion for their own family. It's not like, like I love that example of when 9/11 happened, there was probably no phone calls going out from the Twin Towers for like, I fucking hate you. It's not the call
Good
that was
point.
going to be made, the calls that are going to be made when we're, in the last 2 minutes of our lives, it's about love and compassion. Another thing I also want to say that we're talking about is the 10 point. I don't know. In one of the many sofa sets we have, we talk about that point of when you're standing in front of another person and that person is, angry, or if you see somebody on TV and they are, you utterly, absolutely hate them. Imagine they're gonna die in 2 minutes. Do you still utterly hate them? Do you wish them well for the last 2 minutes? Now there's 1 minute, 30 seconds left. Can you feel in you the compassion for that human being? They're going to be vanishing from the earth in a moment. Can you send them love and compassion? Can you be, the bigger one? Can you send love from one human heart to another human heart? Completely put all differences aside and just be human. Just be love and kindness and compassion. There's a minute left. Can you do that? So it's really this, for you not to keep drinking the poison. You need to, and if you want to drink the love potion, then you really need to calm yourself and to heal yourself all the time. And you do that by putting yourself in the other shoe, putting yourself in the other person. Whatever your motivation is, their motivation is, turn it around, and then do the barricade about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and fundamentally, at this point, right? It's November of 2024.
Yeah. At this point, we know nothing.
Exactly. It all comes down to, what do we actually have in our experience right now?
Yeah, that's the last one we want to talk about.
Yeah, and at any point along the way, this is what we've been kind of hinting at in different directions, especially over the course of this whole meeting, has been, how much is a fabrication of the mind in this moment? How much do I know it's actually true? How much do I know it's actually going to happen? Is it happening in front of me? Is it here right now? And not being immediately propelled into the thought territory of, oh, but if, and I know that this has been, and there are all these reasons to assume that it's going to happen. And even when it's happening, notice what is actually happening right in this given moment. And at any point, how much am I putting on it that isn't actually here? And how much is the actuality of what's going on? Well, go ahead.
Yeah, but and also, like Nikki says, yes, I do know it's happening. Yes, right now they're defunding the public schools. Yes, I do know that is happening. Like the other person we saw, that the company is not getting any in Pennsylvania. They're not getting any Christmas bonuses this year because the company needs, if the tariffs that Trump is saying that he's going to have is going to happen, the company needs the money. They can't give out the bonuses. The company needs to buy stock before the tariffs they're happening. So a lot of people are not getting the Christmas bonuses this year because the company won't survive if they have to pay the tariff that is going to happen. So a lot of you might say, yes, it is already happening. It is already happening. Now, what we would like for you to do is go to the 10th fetter of not knowing. Yes, it might be happening. We do not know if that is the best. First of all, you can't argue with reality. So having an opposition, we just talked about that. The other thing is that we do not know if that is the best thing that has ever happened. Our goal is, peace on earth, one awakening at a time. And that is what we do. Like the Bodhisattva vow is, all the sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. It's absolutely impossible. We're going to do that. So it's that we do not know. We do not know what the path to that looks like. We don't know if the American school system, which is so bad, speaking as a European, is really, really bad. You like basic um, skills of debate is just not here. Critical thinking is just not here. So it needs an overhaul. We don't know if this is the path to that overhaul. If when they start to defund the schools, if they don't have a Christian 10 commandment thing going on, and if they're teaching science, then they don't have any funding at all from, we don't know if then a private company is going to go in and do it on starting a new program. That is, we don't know. We don't know what this means. We don't know what the repercussions of this is. And when we go in and create scare scenarios in our mind of what it will mean with a country that has no public schools, in our mind, we're creating a scaring scenario that is based on the knowledge that we have at this point. But we don't have all the information. We don't know how this looks 10 years from now, 20 years from now. We don't know. We simply do not know. So the best thing we can do is really stay in equanimity. And when you don't feel equanimous, can you be okay with not feeling equanimous? Can you have equanimity towards your non-equanimacy? Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, we never know the outcome of anything. In fact, I was speaking to somebody recently, and they were, again, this is not to, we're completely agnostic towards all of these things, but their astrology thing had said that there's going to be a few years of things getting worse and worse before this new awakening thing or some embetterment thing comes along, and none of us know, right? It's not to say that that's true. We just don't know what's on the other side of anything.
You're turning to astrology now.
Yeah. This is basically, this broke me. I am
absolutely broke.
No. But it's just to say that, like, we genuinely do not know what anything is going to lead to, from the other side. What I would like to say, just from the completely, like, relative side of the street, the just down here in the human dirt part of the things, is that if things start happening in terms of the oppressive policies that people are worried about, I think this is where I just want to say, like, men, you need to step the fuck up. It's one of those things where people do have to be allies for other people.
Yeah.
And this is where, straight people need to become allies.
Yeah. For gay and trans, we need to be allies for the groups that we are not part of.
Exactly.
Because it's not the group itself that is going to win it and win the fight. It's the allies that is going to do it. Yeah. And the biggest threat to anything humane is people doing nothing. It's good people doing nothing. Yeah. That's the worst thing ever. So thank you for saying that, babe. Yeah. I love you for that.
Of course.
But it's really, really, really true. We need to be allies for the groups that needs our support.
Yeah. So, hopefully it doesn't actually come to that. I mean, obviously being an ally is always a good thing, but I'm saying hopefully
you can already now be an ally.
Exactly. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Like, I think it's always been like that. But like I remember actually right after Trump, this probably didn't even know about this. Right after Trump got in, there was a safety pin trend that went along. It didn't really catch on all that big.
Don't know anything about that.
Basically, because people had this kind of fear back in 2016, if you were, like, considering yourself like an ally, you would wear a safety pin on you because you were, so, like, if somebody was in danger, it would say like, I'm a safe person, you can come to me. And so that kind of started, but it didn't really, it kind of petered out. It
So
didn't really
like, I
become a
don't
thing.
understand it. So men wore a safety pin if they
Yeah,
were safe?
or yeah, men or, you know, straight allies or whatever would, you know, anybody in a place where they felt like they were wanted to be a safe haven for other people who
Yeah.
potentially were in danger from somebody else who felt
Yeah.
now, you know, okay to be in some way violent or aggressive to somebody based on their external appearance or whatever else. It was a way of like announcing that I'm an ally and you can come to me.
Yeah.
But it didn't really catch on. But it was that kind of idea where I think everybody has to take it upon themselves at this level to also be
an ally.
Be an ally. Be present. And like I was saying, you know, hopefully it doesn't actually come to the point where the scare things that are in the minds are, you know, saying it could, but it's just to be, it's calling for all of us to be our best loving selves. You know, I think we're preaching to the choir here, because even if the people here voted for Trump, regardless, right? You're doing this kind of work because you are trying to be a better person in some way, right? Like you're coming at it from the standpoint of trying to reduce suffering in the world. And if you voted for Trump, I assume you did it because you felt like that was a path to removing suffering for people.
Yeah.
Right. So most likely the people who are encountering this already, for whatever reason, feel like they're doing that thing.
Yeah.
And this is just a call to really look into every way in which your actions or behaviors cause suffering for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
And take every one of those opportunities to investigate and, you know, allow that to kind of change behavior going forward, to just be a kinder, more loving, better person all around. And it's going to feel better for you. It's going to reduce your suffering. You're going to be less at odds with yourself. You're going to be less at odds with the people around you. And this is how we actually make the world a slightly marginally better place.
Yeah.
Little bit by bit.
Leave the potion and drink leave the poison and drink the potion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.